In the late 1960s, on the shores of St. Johns River in Jacksonville, Florida, a young woman named Mary Lou Richardson was bow fishing. After some time, she soon spotted something peculiar out in the water and alerted her father and friend. The three would look out on the water and see a strange creature. It had a flat head, pink skin, and its skeleton seemed to protrude through its skin. The trio didn't know it at the time, but they had just witnessed a river monster that has been spotted for centuries. In this episode, we will examine the Florida legend of the St. Johns River Monster. The St. Johns River Monster, often nicknamed Pinky, has been described as being a snake-like creature, being at least 30 feet in length. Witnesses state the creature has pink skin and appears to be similar in appearance to the Loch Ness Monster or Canada's Ogopogo. Still though, it's important to note too that many of the witnesses' reports vary considerably. Some state the beast is brown in color, and other reports state Pinky has a horn on its head. There's even sightings where the St. Johns River Monster goes on land and people have seen it waddling. The St. Johns River is a 310-mile river in eastern Florida. The river is unique as it flows northward and is one of the longest rivers in the United States that does this. The river eventually empties out into the Atlantic Ocean, and it's thought by some that Pinky might actually have swam in from the sea. While there's been a number of sightings, perhaps the most famous report occurred in 1975. On May 10th, 1975, 5 people were traveling on a boat in the St. Johns River when they spotted something strange ahead. The creature raised its head out of the water, and the group saw a head that they would later describe to be dragon-like. They were only 20 feet away, and as the creature saw them, it quickly went under the surface and swam away. Dorothy Abram was one of the 5 witnesses on the boat that day, and she provided perhaps the best description we have to date. She stated it looked like a dinosaur, and that the head sat on a 3-foot-long neck. The monster's head was about the size of a man's, and its head had 2 horns. Dorothy said the skin looked pulled back, and you were able to see its bones. The eyes of the beast were dark, and the color was light pink, resembling that of boiled shrimp. The other witnesses that day would all state that the creature looked like it came from the Jurassic period. Oddly, all 5 of the witnesses stated when the creature disappeared under the surface, it produced almost no ripple in the water. As mentioned, tales of a monster in the river go back centuries, and at least to the year 1849. That year, a newspaper named The Examiner tells the story of a sea captain named Adams who, when entering the St. Johns River, encountered an immense sea monster. It lifted its head, and a good portion of its body came out of the water. Captain Adams estimated the beast to be around 90 feet long. He said the creature was around 7 feet wide at its thickest part and had a dark brown color. It's important to point out here that by all accounts, that Captain Adams was an honorable man and honest. Many citizens in the Jacksonville area who heard the story believed him and dismissed the notion he would have created the story. Another sighting occurred by a woman in 1976. In July 1976, Kathy Kirkland was enjoying the day at Stockton Park in Jacksonville, Florida. Miss Kirkland was fishing when suddenly she spotted something around 50 yards in the water. A head had popped out, and it was unlike anything she had ever seen. She watched it for a short time, but couldn't figure out exactly what it was. The 1950s seemed to have lots of reports of the monster as well. One witness stated they saw the beast out of the water, on the shore, eating plants. The monster waddled around and eventually disappeared back in the water. Sometime during the 1950s, 2 men out fishing stated they saw bubbles rising next to their boat. Soon, something came and hit their boat from underneath, almost knocking it over. The two men went to shore as quickly as possible. One event that happened in the 1950s concerns a hefty reward offered by snake collector Owen Godwin. This is well documented in several newspapers at the time. Godwin offered a $5,000 reward for anyone that was able to produce the corpse of Pinky. Owens posted the reward in the Orlando Sentinel newspaper. He stipulated that to collect the reward, the beast must be the true one and measure at least 30 feet and have a horn. It's important to point out here that many other sightings have occurred as well in the 20th century of the St. Johns River monster. Still, the reports have dropped quite significantly over the decades. Despite fewer reports, there's been several theories put forth as to what people have seen and what Pinky could be. The first is that people witnessed a giant salamander and that Pinky might have been a new species of this that grew to an abnormal size. We know giant salamanders can grow to 5 feet, and although many of them tend to be dark in appearance, perhaps Pinky just grew to a massive size and maybe a different color. Another possibility is some of the witnesses saw sea cows or manatees. In 1990 in Tampa Bay, there were reports of an albino manatee in the Peace River in Florida. Since the river connects to the ocean, it's certainly a possibility manatees were in the river. For anyone who doesn't spend time on the water, the sea cow could surely seem like a strange animal. One other possibility is that the sightings are from several animals traveling together in the water. We know that some animals do travel one by one in a line, producing an effect that looks like a snake in the water. An example of this are otters, and there's even cases of this in the St. Johns River. It doesn't explain all the sightings, but it's surely one possibility. One theory holds that it was a combination of mistaken identity, exaggeration, and lying. The misidentification could be a combination of some of the aforementioned animals, and perhaps some of the witnesses simply exaggerated or lied. It could be the case too, something did live in the river years ago, but either died out or went back out to sea. The final theory states that this is something new, a new species, one that is quite elusive. Some speculate that the monster spends most of its time out in the ocean and comes upriver from time to time. Still, it's tough to envision, as no animal in the ocean really fits the description of this well. It seems more likely than not the St. John's monster, in our opinion, either existed at one point and probably doesn't exist today. The river is only around 40 feet deep on average and doesn't seem to be deep enough for a large creature to really hide. In addition, there's only a few credible documented sightings, and one of them happened in 1849. Still, it could be the case this beast does exist, and perhaps in the future we'll get a sighting with video or photographic evidence.